Hi everybody, that's obviously an iconic piece of music there. That's Soul Limbo by Booker T and the MGs, famous of course for Green Onions, but certainly that is the theme tune for BBC's cricket and has been for many, many years, which means obviously that it's summertime. Got my t-shirt on. Looking forward to a couple of things, 2 or 3 things happening over the summer. Obviously, going to Manitowoc next month, less than a month's time. I'll be in Manitowoc. Obviously, this time of year, the Speedway. Love the Speedway. 500cc motorbikes. I'll hopefully get down to Berwick a couple of times to watch the Bandits. And of course, the Cricket World Cup, which is a genuine World Cup. It has lots and lots of teams tried to qualify for the World Cup. There is indeed an American cricket team, an American Cricket Association. They've got, in America, over 20 million people are interested in cricket, mainly, of course, from either the West Indies, from the UK, Australia, and Asia, which is good, and we hope to see the American team progress and eventually qualify for a big major tournament. And certainly here in the UK we've had one big bonus has been the fact that particularly people from the Asian community who consider themselves either Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, Pakistani, Indian, they have chosen to sort of come out of their communities in various parts of the UK and become part of England and play for England. Most notably, of course, 2 of the players that play for England are Moeen Ali, who is from Birmingham, from the Asian community in Birmingham, and is an absolute hero there. And of course, Adil Rashid, who similarly is a Yorkshire Asian, but they're as much English as anybody else playing in the England team. Anyway, more about that later. As I say, looking forward to various things in the summer, but I thought rather than try and explain too much about the sport, what I'll do is I'll keep you posted as to how things are progressing. However, I should explain that cricket is played in various formats. One that's particularly famous, of course, is what's known as Test cricket, which can potentially take up to 5 days to play a test match. The World Cup is not a test match series. It is a 50 overs per side, which means that the game is started and finished within about 7 to 8 hours, which provides great entertainment, obviously, for the fans. There is an even shorter form of the game where you have only 20 overs per side, and currently the big domestic tournament in the world is the Indian Premier League, which attracts players from all of the test playing nations and others. Although for political reasons, there's no actual players from Pakistan that play in the Indian Premier League, but there's certainly plenty of other countries represented. And that tournament has only just finished with, of course, the Mumbai Indians beating the Chennai Super Kings in the final, much to Shane Watson's disappointment. He's the big hitting Australian that plays for them. And of course, in terms of fame worldwide, I can think of only a couple of players that would shine. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, MS Dhoni, as he's called, and one of them, of course, would be Virat Kohli. and of course Chris Gale of the West Indies. So anyway, it's 50 overs per side, and this is where cricket and baseball actually share the same term. It's known as an innings. When one team goes out to bat, they toss the coin, and one team the team winning the toss decides whether it wants to bat or bowl first, and each team has 50 overs, unless they are bowled out before the end of the 50 overs. The bowling team has obviously, players amongst it who are some of which are specialist bowlers, some of which are more all-rounders, but they are allowed a maximum of 10 overs each, an over consisting of 6 deliveries. One of the big differences between cricket and baseball is that you are not allowed to throw the ball. You have to bowl the ball as a bowler, which means that you're not allowed to bend the arm at all. The arm has to be kept perfectly straight. There is a 15% margin allowed for, and this is strictly adhered to by the match official, the referee that watches, and if he reports if the umpires suspect that the bowler is bowling incorrectly, they can immediately stop that bowler from bowling. They would warn him once, and then if he did it again and they suspected him of having bent the arm too much, would remove him from bowling any more deliveries. There is actually one other circumstance in which a bowler can be prevented from carrying on bowling, and that is if they bowl what's known as a full toss, which in other words, in terms of pitching, if they deliver the ball from 22 yards and it arrives above the player's waistline in his normal batting position, if he does that twice, then that's known as a beamer, and again, he is removed from the bowling attack. And the batting team, they are given a free hit. It's declared a no ball, and they get a free hit when they cannot be out other than run out. There are various forms of dismissal in cricket. It's not typical. As soon as I start doing a video, the phone goes. We should just ignore it. It's really annoying, but never mind. So as I say, we have these umpires in cricket, one each end. They adjudicate the match. They show a little bit like, you know how iconic the scoring system in Aussie rules football is when the umpires go like that. Well, in cricket, when it's a 4, the umpire goes like that, and if it's a 6, they go like that. They put their hands up in the air. There's lots of other signs that they give. Lots of other rules. Some people think it's quite complicated. I think only the fact that it's been around for so long, literally hundreds of years. You know, we can trace cricket back for such a long time. One thing that is particularly good about cricket is the fact that we've caught up with our American friends and seen the sense in having TV replays, and umpires are able to call for a decision by a third umpire who has the benefit of all the technology of ball tracking and cameras, and even one of the most contentious issues is whether a batsman actually hit the ball or not. The fielding team claim that he did, but the deflection is so slight that it can hardly be seen. However, with the help of a stump microphone and camera, with the help of the microphone, they can actually hear the little click that the ball makes as it passes the bat, as it just nicks the bat. So that's one thing that we're very thankful to America for, because they've had TV umpiring for a long time before football has eventually caught up. Rugby uses it. As I say, cricket has used technology for quite a long time now, but for various decisions. Anyway, as I say, the Cricket World Cup is starting up, I believe, in about a couple of weeks' time, and I'll keep you informed on what's happening with it. England themselves have just finished a warm-up series against Pakistan. They won that 4-0 with one of the games being rained off. And England do look, they are favourites. They look like favourites. They prefer the other team to set a score, and they go out and chase it, and comfortably overhauled over 350 runs. That's over 7 runs per over in one of the games. And of course, currently hold the world record for the highest score, which was actually quite pleasing because it was against Australia last year, and they hammered Australia for 481. There was huge speculation that England would actually make it to 500. Maybe they'll save that for sometime during the tournament, because they've got batsmen throughout the lineup that love to go out and really hammer the ball as much as possible. I suppose the Kiwi, the New Zealander Brendan McCullum comes to mind. He's one that famously, no fear cricket would be his motto. Anyway, let's just quickly look at the teams. As I say, England are the favourites, but we did have a little bit of a mishap with them, and that was the fact that Alex Hales, the Nottinghamshire batsman, who he did hold the record score for an English player at 100. It was 171 until Jason Roy passed him with 180 at Sydney. It was 2 years ago. Alex Hales, naughty lad. He has twice now been tested positive for recreational drugs. What a silly boy. And I mean, he's not a boy. He's in his late 20s now. And also, of course, he was famously with Ben Stokes when Ben Stokes had an altercation in a Bristol pub with a member of the serving British Armed Forces, where a fight broke out. Ben Stokes was obviously suspended, missed the Ashes tour. The Ashes tour being the tour to Australia, where England and Australia compete for what's known as the Ashes. It's the oldest cricket competition in the world, held every 2 years. Anyway, we've got Alex Hales tested positive again for recreational drugs and has been dropped. And it's a real shame, because he is a really, really, really good player. Again, one that absolutely hammers the ball huge distances. But he's out. We don't know how long it's going to be before he returns to the England team. Second favourites, undoubtedly India. And I've already mentioned about their iconic, they have this iconic wicket-keeper batsman called Mahendra Singh Dhoni, simply known as MS Dhoni. In fact, sometimes people just refer to him as MSD, which for some people might sound a bit unfortunate. But anyway, MSD is their iconic wicket-keeper batsman. Iconic because he does what's known as a helicopter shot, where the bat kind of waves above his head. And what's particularly humorous about that, of course, is that Mahendra Singh Dhoni has actually passed his test and is able to fly helicopters, and does fly a helicopter because it's a good way of getting around India, as you can imagine. As I say, Virat Kohli, fantastic player, well worth watching, very, very entertaining. He really does wear his heart on his sleeve. You see all of the emotions with him, as I say, fantastic player. Gets very, very agitated. You know, he's definitely one who needs to have a word with Carla and take the deep breaths, because he really does get agitated. Also in the batting lineup for India, you've got the opener. His name escapes me at the moment. Murley, not Murley. No, it doesn't matter. It'll come to me. They've got some really good players. You've got the likes of that Ravinder Jadeja, who is a bowler and batsman. Yes, one who is particularly exciting is Hardik Pandya, who is a youngster, very, very good player, and Rishabh Pant. The name of the opener escapes me. That's really annoying, really bugging. It's like a household name. Anyway, moving on. Australia. Australia will be they will be making their return. Will be Smith and Warner. Now, you've heard me mention them before. They are not a make of gun. They are, of course, Steve Smith and David Warner, and they were suspended by the Australian Cricket Board for their part, in an attempt during a test match against South Africa to deliberately alter the condition of the ball they were playing with. But not only that, the way in which they then tried to conceal their methods of altering the ball using a bit of sandpaper, which Cameron Bancroft kept within his trousers, so that he thought he would get away with it. Unfortunately, the umpires were alerted by the off-field umpire that there was something dodgy going on inside Cameron Bancroft's trouser. I know it sounds quite comical, doesn't it? Anyway, the upshot being that not only did Cameron Bancroft get banned, and Steve Smith as the captain, and Dave Warner, who I believe was the vice captain, but also the chief architect of the plan, but also Darrell Lehman, former batsman for Australia. So in charge now we have Justin Langer. But the rest of the Australian team, iconic players. Definitely Glenn Maxwell is an iconic player. Aaron Finch, another one. And they've got that. Again, it's another player that's Chris Lynn. But they've got some players that they have got some players. If they click, then they'll cause anybody problems, and they've got some very good bowlers with the likes of Mitchell Stark, and a couple of others that are good and fast. Talking about fast bowlers, of course, England have got a young lad, Jofra Archer, who was just recently qualified to play for England, and he bowls at over 90 miles an hour, which, compared with baseball, in baseball they typically throw the ball, the pitcher pitches the ball typically between 90 and 100 miles an hour. But that, as I say, with the advantage of a bent arm throwing the ball. This is having to bowl the ball with a straight arm, but with a run up. Some of them are able to get it over 90 miles an hour. Say Australia got some good bowlers. New Zealand are always dangerous. They've got the big opener, Martin Guptill, somebody to watch out for. Don't be surprised if he doesn't have a bit of a good tournament. Obviously, Ross Taylor is a bit of a veteran now, but then they've also got Kane Richardson, who is a little bit like England's Joe Root, maybe not the big hitter or as big a hitter as some of the players. You know, they're not in the league of Stokes and Butler and Gale and Guptill and Warner and Finch, but they stick around. So New Zealand, dangerous. They've also got they've got a bowler, Lottie Ferguson, I believe his name is. Again, bowls over 90 miles an hour. Pakistan, wait and see. They've had their pre-season, their warm-up matches, and have decided to go with two players that never played any of the warm-up matches to put in their 15-man squad. You have to declare your 15-man squad, but for injuries, you have to stick with those 15 players. You can't just bring players in just for the sake of it, you know. There has to be a justifiable reason. And so they brought in Mohammed Amir, and Wahab Riaz, that haven't played at all on tour. So you wonder, is that such a good idea? Maybe stick with some of the other players that they've brought in that could have improved. Sri Lanka, I'm not expecting huge things from them. They're in a bit of a rebuilding process. Similarly, Bangladesh. You know, on their day, yes, they can do some damage. Afghanistan are being tipped as dark horses, not to win it, but certainly to upset some of the bigger teams. Their main weapon is their spin bowler, Rashid Khan. I should explain that within cricket, the bowlers are ranked in three different categories. You've got the slow bowlers, which are the spinners. They deliberately try and put as much revolution on the spin on the ball as possible, so that when it hits the pitch, obviously it'll then deviate in either to one side or the other, or sometimes that once it hits the pitch, it then shoots forward. And there are some particularly skillful spin bowlers. Next in category, you get the medium pacers that are faster than the spin bowlers, but they're not the full out fast bowlers. Typically, you're talking about around about the 80 mile an hour bowlers, whereas your fast bowlers are the ones that are really fast. Fast bowling is, at the moment, it's not really something you associate too much with the Asian teams, although you do have the guy Jasprit Bumrah of India, who's quite quick, and has got a very strange action. If you ever see him, he reminds me of now this is going back, Mike Proctor of South Africa, who famously played for Gloucestershire. He used to bowl basically on the wrong foot. Jasprit Bumrah doesn't do that, but he's got a very strange action. It's one of these that you'd have to see to believe. Not as strange as Lasith Malinga, of course. Malinga the slinger. His arm doesn't come from a sort of vertical angle. It comes from a sideways angle. Although when they've checked it, it looks as if he's throwing the ball, but in actual fact, he's using a perfectly straight, unbent arm. So he has been passed and checked and passed. The West Indies, they won the T20 World Cup 2 years ago, famously in the final. They beat England, who have only ever won one World Cup, and that was the very first 2020 tournament in the final. Should they have done? Ben Stokes was bowling the last over. They needed, I think it was like 20 odd runs off the last over. Ben Stokes tried to bowl 3 Yorkers at Carlos Brathwaite. A Yorker being a delivery that actually hits the ground more or less where the batsman is standing, so that it becomes very difficult to hit. The problem is if you're a little bit short or a little bit too full, then it makes for an easy hit for the batsman. And Carlos Brathwaite hit 3 consecutive sixes off Ben Stokes and won the World Cup for the West Indies in very dramatic circumstances. Obviously, Carlos Brathwaite hasn't really done anything since then. But somebody else that's worth watching out for. There's a couple of bowlers who, when they dismiss the batsman, they do some interesting celebrations. You've got Imran Tahir of South Africa. He goes on a mad run around the pitch. He just goes berserk and starts running anywhere, sort of like a headless chicken. But you've got Hassan Ali of Pakistan, who does a particularly good celebration, waving his arms. And then you've got Shane Cottrell, who was in the army. And so every time he dismisses a batsman, he does a military style salute. Again, well worth looking out for. You know that name of that Indian batsman? It's still bugging me. No, it's gone. What can we say about South Africa? Well, we know that AB de Villiers is not playing, and he is there. Really has been South Africa's star player for so long now. That is really surprising. I should just mention, of course, for the West Indies, I believe that Chris Gayle is going to play. I'm not sure about Chris Gayle. I think, yes, he hits the ball a long way, but his scoring rate is nothing special compared with some of the batsmen. Some of the batsmen their scoring rate is over 200, which means that they score per delivery. They score on average 2 runs per delivery. So therefore, they're hitting a lot of fours. A 4 is when obviously the ball goes to the boundary, but it touches the ground along the way. And a 6 is when it either hits the boundary or clears the boundary. Should just mention, of course, they've got that. The West Indies have got that Andre Russell, who is also back from. He was banned for a while, but his wasn't for recreational drugs. His ban was for performance-enhancing drugs. Tested positive for something, and he is very, very well built. So it'll be interesting to see him playing. I'm not sure if Kieran Pollard is a huge, huge fella. I don't know if he's playing. The big problem with the West Indies is that, like Sir Gale, he's nearly 40 years old. He's big, he's cumbersome. When it comes to fielding, some of them really struggle. There's 3 parts, obviously, to same as baseball. There's your batting, there's your bowling, and there's your fielding. And the fielding, this is something where some of the best teams have got specialists in from America, from American baseball, and have said to them, come across and teach us some of your skills with regard to throwing the ball, fielding the ball, catching, etc., etc. And of course, the fielders don't have a big mitt; they have to catch bare hands. But some of the skills that you see the fielders doing is pretty impressive. I must admit, some of the skills you see in American baseball when it comes to fielding, like a relay throw. I remember seeing one where You know, the one guy threw it to one of the base so quick that he got that man out, and he then immediately threw it to another base and got that man out. And you think, wow, that is pretty impressive. They have spent a lot of time working on that. Anyway, we're digressing. Well, not really. Fielding, as I say, it can make the difference. What can we say about South Africa? They've kind of recovered from. They had a huge controversy a few years back, not long after they were readmitted to take part in sporting events following apartheid. And of course, it was the Hansi Cronje affair, where he was caught red-handed, basically not match fixing, but betting on games and helping bookmakers, obviously for profit. So I don't think he. There was one game I seem to remember against England that did look very dodgy, because he forfeited. They forfeited innings. Instead of having 2 innings each, they forfeited 1, and this was a huge advantage to England. It was a very, very generous one, and it did look very, very, very dodgy. And of course, unfortunately, Hansi Cronje couldn't stand the attention, and actually committed suicide. Which, you know, nobody thinks that was the correct outcome. As I say, they haven't had any controversy. They were more or less blameless in the controversy with the Australian ball tampering. The only problem with the with South Africa cricket is at times they're a little bit like believe it or not, the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. The New Zealand rugby team have won the World Cup, I think, a couple of times, maybe 3 times. But there's other times when they've not made it to the final, when you think, you know, they are the best team in the world. They should have, and they choked. And certainly South Africa have regularly, there's some sort of pressure that comes on them, whereby they self-explode and implode. So I'm not too sure about South Africa. They do have some good young players, certainly the fast bowler, Rabada Kangiso. Anyway, Rabada, good fast bowler. And they do have still some batsmen that can hit the ball a long way, like your Colin Ingram and your David Miller. And they've got 1 or 2 other players, Chris Morris, obviously Quinton de Kock. But they're not they're not the favourites. Not just because it's being held in England, but because of the way that England have not only played in England but also abroad. Have gone to all of the major countries and beaten them in this format of the game, the 50 over. So England are the number 1 ranked 50 over side, led of course by Owen Morgan, who is he's got a Welsh name, but he's actually Irish, qualified to play for England. So he transferred from Ireland so that he could play for England, and quite rightly so, because he has been able to forward his career, and is the leading run scorer in one-day internationals for England. He's the top of the pile. It's going to be fascinating to watch the World Cup. When I'm in Manitowoc, I'm going to still be able to keep track of what's happening in the cricket. And if you get a chance to see a little bit of it, hopefully with my updates, you'll be able to keep track of what's happening, the latest news, the latest development. As I say, what the next warm-up game is, I believe, this Saturday, England versus Australia. So that should be interesting, because I would imagine that both teams will look to play at full strength. Can't imagine them not wanting to be at full strength for this final. I think England have got 2 warm-up games. I think they've also got Afghanistan. I'm sure they're going to be looking to play their full strength team. And obviously we wait to see what happens. The weather, of course, can always be a bit of a pain. What happens is that if a certain amount of time is lost due to weather, in cricket they have a very innovative system whereby if, for example, one team has gone out and batted, and say they've completed their 50 overs and scored a certain amount of runs, but then there's a delay because of weather and the other team is not able to bat for so many overs, they have a system, they have a method, basically a calculated system whereby they calculate what should be what we call a par score, given the amount of overs that the other team has. It's known as the DLS, Duckworth Lewis. I can't remember what the S stands for, but the Duckworth Lewis, they mathematicians that came up with this formula to work out what would be a par score, and whether you like it or not, it's what they use, so that the team that's batting, they know what their score should be after each over, given the amount of wickets that they've lost, because obviously the whole idea in cricket is normally to try and bowl the opposition out. Sometimes in a 50 over game they do bowl the opposition out, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the opposition deliberately makes sure, quite rightly, that they bat their full 50 overs. Hence the reason you get, a score of, say, 350 for 7. They've scored 350 runs and there were 7 of their players dismissed. The batsmen that come at the end of the innings, basically the bowlers are not, you put your best batsman at the start of the innings, and then gradually you go through the innings and you get to the all-rounders and then the bowlers. And you get, certainly with regards to batsmen, you get batsmen in specialised positions, whether they are opening batsmen or whether they come in at 3 and 4, because obviously those are quite important positions. You get some batsmen who they will deliberately target a certain part of the game, a certain period of the game, when they'll send in a particular batsman. One wonders why Josh Butler doesn't open the batting. He does in T20 matches, but they tend to save him for around about the 25th, 30th over. So if a wicket falls, say at the 20th, 30th over, somewhere in that time frame, then they send him out. And there's 1 or 2 other players like that, as I said, likes of your Andre Russell of the West Indies. I think actually, probably for the Americans, I think, as I say, there isn't the American cricket team didn't qualify for the World Cup. So therefore, of the teams that you should maybe look to support, the West Indies would be a good one, because they're very, very near neighbours. So there's a few, as I say, a few really good players to look out for from West Indies, likes of your Kieran Pollard, your Dwayne Bravo, and Andre Russell. And some of these players deliberately come in so far during the innings at the fall of a wicket, in order to try and make the most of the fact that, and I should have explained this as well, fielding restrictions during the 50 overs, in the first 10 overs, the fielding team is only allowed to have 2 fielders outside of a 30-yard circle. There are 2 wickets, sets of stumps, separated by 22 yards, obviously. And if you took each middle stump as the centre, and then you had a radius of 30 yards from that, 30 yards from the other one, and then made it into like a, not quite an oval, but you know what I mean. Outside of that, those 2 circles, you're not allowed to have more than 2 players, 2 fielders in the first 10 overs, and then in the last 10 overs, you're only allowed 3 players outside of. Yes, you're only allowed 3 players outside. Even during the game itself, you're only allowed 4 players in the middle part. You're only allowed 4 players outside of that outside of the circle in overs between 10 and 40. So yeah, there's a certain amount of tactics involved, obviously. Some of the shots that the batsmen play to score with, you'll see some of them doing some quite unusual shots whereby they basically use the pace of the bowler to get underneath the ball and basically play the ball over their shoulders. On last week, Sunday, yes, on Sunday, I saw one of the players actually put the bat and actually hit the ball straight over his head. The ball came straight at him, and as it bounced, he just swatted it over his head. Quite an unusual shot. Obviously, with baseball, you have to hit the ball in a sort of very wide V. Not so in cricket. The idea is to score the ball, to hit the ball to any part of the ground, because you are in the middle of the cricket field. You know, you've got your 22 yards of wicket, as we call it, specially cut section, dried out, so that it offers quite a bit of bounce to the ball. The ball is made of cork, compressed cork in the inside, and then leather around it, which is then stitched. Cricket balls are quite heavy, and they get bowled at 90 mile an hour, and sometimes they come off the bat at quite a speed, and are deposited over the boundaries. Anyway, I think that's more or less all I want to talk about the Cricket World Cup. I will keep you posted as the tournament develops, because it is of interest, and of course we still wait for Judge Angela Sutkovic to make her decision. Somebody said that she had 60 days. Somebody said that she should have given her decision by now. As I say, I can only imagine that they are running around at the moment like headless chickens, wondering what on earth is going to happen. And personally, I sincerely hope that Judge Angela Sutkovic has seen enough and has said, right, I can cover for you for so long, but there comes a point when, I'm just making myself look to be an absolute fool and an idiot in not accepting that there is something decidedly dodgy going on here. That would be my hope. We wait and see. In the case of what goes on in the legal system over there in Wisconsin, I suppose the one thing we shouldn't be surprised about is any surprises. Most unusual, isn't it? The goings on over there. There's this whole idea, you've been caught out. I suppose that there is a slight cricketing parody there. In the last test series between England and Australia, called the Ashes, there was an incident 4 years ago when Stuart Broad was quite clearly out. He nicked the ball. The ball went to the side. The fielder fielded the ball, took the catch, but the umpire didn't give Stuart Broad out. He didn't, for some reason, he didn't see that he'd edged the ball, or somehow thought that some other reason had caused the ball to be deflected to the slip fielder. At the time, Australia had used up their reviews. You're allowed to call for a review of the decision, and had they had any reviews left, then they could have used one of their 2 reviews. But they had no reviews left, which meant that they weren't able to ask the umpire to adjudicate, to check. And of course, Stuart Broad took the criticism when England went to Australia 2 years later. And I can't help thinking, well, hold on a sec. I can think of a few Australians that would not have walked. The accusation being that when it was as clear a catch as that, then ethically speaking, that the batsman is meant to sort of just walk off and doesn't need the umpire to give the decision, which is the finger, you're out. So as I say, Stuart Broad copped a load of flack off the Australian media. Asked Mark Hodnett about it. I'm sure he remembers that with glee. Some of the phone-in and stuff, that radio chat that they had about Stuart Broad's non-walking caused a bit of a lot of people to get heated about it. So I suppose that there is a parody there in the fact that until somebody higher up says, no more of this, then they're just going to try and keep getting away with it. But even Stuart Broad has admitted, yeah, of course he hit the ball. You can see that he hit the ball, but it's up to the umpire to make the decision. And the umpire on that occasion was honest about it. He saw the incident differently. Whether Judge Angela Tsukovic can claim that she sees the case differently and sees it the same way as the state trying to claim that it shouldn't really matter if they gave possible human bones back to Teresa Holbach's family. I must give a shout out for Chad Keller. There wasn't many people watching it. He did a live talk. I think he was near a lake at the time, and he really did go into great detail about the Peg Lautenschlager and Governor Doyle, Jim Doyle, and how political that whole situation is. It is so political. When you see pictures of Stephen Avery with the governor, those photographs weren't for Steve's benefit; they were for the governor's benefit, to, in effect, politically get one over on his opponents. So if you get the chance to hear Chad talking about the political situation over there, look, whether every single thing that Chad says can absolutely be verified and corroborated, we don't know. was jerry-buting quite the sort of the plant, if you like, for the prosecution and Stram. Well, they certainly seem to have been genuine in their efforts to free Steve. Things they did wrong during the case, yes. Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, yeah, we can see things that should have been done differently. I think we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but certainly have a listen to when it comes to talking about the political situation there. There's no doubt about it. It's sort of brushed up. There's some mention of it, obviously in series 1. Kathleen Zellner says, yeah, this is a highly political situation. Of that, there is no doubt. So anyway, we wait and see what Judge Angela decides. We wait to see who is successful in the Cricket World Cup, and also there's a Speedway World Cup coming up. That's in Russia next month or the month after. And of course, there's the Grand Prix, which I'm very keen to watch. I watch them regularly. Great entertainment. One thing that we can certainly thank the Aussies for was the inventing of the Speedway. I'm on about motorcycle Speedway, by the way. The 500cc bikes that have no brakes, but they accelerate from 0 to 60 as quick as a Formula 1 racing car, 2.5 seconds. Pretty spectacular sport. Anyway, I think we've just about covered everything, other than the fact that what on earth was Eric Cozy on last night? He did a video basically to complain about the ending of this series called Game of Thrones. But his ending to his video was so abrupt. I wonder what had happened, whether something had just cut out, stopped working, whether something had happened to the dude himself. Well, rest assured, I think it happened to the dude. He was quite happily enjoying himself on social media after the video, messaging various people, including myself and the other guys from the tour down under. Certainly, we're looking forward to having a good old get together in Manitowoc. So hopefully, we'll see plenty of you there. I know that some of you, it's a long way to go. A bit daunting to think about going all the way there. Personally, one of the things I've always wanted to do would be to go to America. And of course, one of the problems, it's such a vast country. It's like, well, where would you choose to go? You know, I mean, there are people that live in America that haven't been to all parts of America. So yeah, if you're going as a tourist to America, where would you choose to go? Why would you choose to go there? The good thing about the rally is that it provides us with the where and the why. And that's really all we need, isn't it? Go there, have a good time, enjoy certainly the hospitality in Wisconsin. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely great. You know, sometimes you can let one or two bad things cloud our opinions of places. I'm sure we're going to have an absolutely brilliant time. Yes, we do have an issue with certain parts of the legal system and the framing of Steve and Brendan. But we're going to protest and make our voices heard, and hopefully get a chance to speak to one or two locals. I'm sure there'll be some who will be interested in the fact that people have come from all over the world for this case, that feel that it's such an important issue, which it is, of course. You know, it's always a case of, if somebody who was a guilty said, well, why are you bothering about this? Have you not got problems in your own backyard? Well, you always remember the words of Brendan. People in the world, people of the world, people out there in of the world, please help me if you can. And of course, going along to the presentations by the various attorneys is a good way of supporting the attorneys, but a good way of supporting Stephen Brendan is by having these rallies. But what's particularly good is the fact that everybody comes together under this banner, and you make friends with people. And I know that at times we can irritate one another. And I've said this to quite a few people, because the case against Stephen Brendan is so feeble, and yet they were still found guilty. It leads to so much inner annoyance and anger at this case that sometimes, and I've seen it with some people, they take their annoyance at what's happened to Stephen Brendan, they take it out on other supporters when they shouldn't do. But it's one of these most natural human emotions. We tend, sometimes we tend to lash out at the ones that we actually care for, when we should be a little bit more thoughtful in what we're saying. Sometimes people come across as being very dogmatic, and this is what happened, and that's what happened, and this, that, the other. When somebody else has got maybe a contrasting opinion. And that's one of the really good things about being involved in this this build-up and then the rally for justice, is the fact that it does bring people under one banner from quite a wide range of the community, shall we say, people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, countries, origins, ethnicities. We're all coming together. It still puts a smile on my face when I think about the fact that Eric Hosey, for his Mamathon videos, the analytics, there were 19 different countries. Incidentally, on his analytics, it counts the United Kingdom as one country, but of course it's not. It's 4 different countries: the United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, that make up Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, and then Ireland separately. So yes, 19 different countries tuning in to hear about what's happening in the case. So anyway, I think I've probably waffled, avid, whatever. As I say, looking forward to the World Cup and seeing what develops. Looking forward to the Speedway. Looking forward to the rally. Looking forward to whatever decision is made by Angela. I don't feel sorry for her at all, but she's stuck between a rock and a hard place. She's damned if she does, and she's damned if she doesn't. Because if she does grant this evidentiary hearing, then all well and good, great, smashing, finally starting to do the right thing. And if she doesn't, then we carry on, Zalma carries on, and everything goes back to the District Appeals Court, who already sent it back the first time with a judging by the tone of the decision by Judge Riley was pretty interesting. That reminds me, another thing I found interesting was Chad was saying about the fact that, although this Judge Hagedorn has been appointed from District 2 to the Supreme Court. And although he's Republican, from what Chad has been told, and is led to believe, and having spoken to him, and he did mention Juan Tescrew, who Juan, if you're out there watching and listening, I'm sure you're enjoying all the developments. Has obviously met Brian, and Brian Hagedorn is pro innocent and pro Steve. So yes, if it does have to go to the next level up, and then the next level up, then so be it. But as I say, I can't help thinking that, from a certainly from a career point of view, Angela should be very cautious about deny, because there are going to be people that are going to look at that and say, well, I don't think you can keep doing that. Not when you're faced with what has happened. We wait and find out. Enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you like the t-shirt. This is my latest acquisition. It's not a rally t-shirt, but it might make an appearance. There's the dude himself. There's Walter and Donnie, of course, if you're not familiar. If you've never seen The Big Lebowski, I know that it's the opposite of, you've got your chick flicks, and then you've got whatever you want to call them, the films that blokes particularly enjoy. But honestly, it is well worth a watch. And then a lot of banter will make a lot more sense. Anyway, catch you soon. Bye for now.